Hi, my name is Janelle White. So I am a digital media coordinator in the nonprofit sector currently. I'm blessed to be able to be safely working from home. I have been a member of Rivers of Living Water Ministries International for 2 years now. I was doing their live streaming and all of that in their media ministry pre-COVID. So a lot has changed as a result of that, unfortunately, but we're still thriving.
Hi, my name is Sylvia Snowden, and I am a professional journalist. I have been a baptized believer just about my whole life. I recently decided to take my relationship with Christ to another level by enrolling at McCormick Theological Seminary. I am in my third year there studying. I'm getting a certificate in Black church studies and just really learning about how the church ministers to the needs of people in general, but of Black people specifically.
Hi, I'm Lisa Griffin. I am an international underwriter with Zurich. I have been a member of Bryn Mawr Community Church for the past 15 plus years, and I'm happy to be a part of the group.
Good afternoon. My name is Demetrius Jordan. I am a professional educator. I teach both high school and college in the city of Chicago. I belong to Second Baptist Church of LaGrange for about the last 2.5 years. And I'm a PK and been in the church most of my life. So, wonderfully looking forward to this conversation.
Hi, my name is Kevin Smith. I'm an IT professional, and I'm currently the Technology Committee Chairman at Bryn Mawr Community Church. I attend Bryn Mawr Community Church and have been a member since I was about 8 or 9. That was the church I grew up in, so I've been there forever. We're trying something new today with this, so this is kind of our pilot. So looking forward to this discussion. And we're trying something new. This isn't exactly a Bible study per se. This is more of a discussion group. So I have a member of Bryn Mawr here, but I have some good friends who are Christians, but from other churches. So we're just going to have a discussion. So I'm looking forward. I know for a fact that all of the people here are very intelligent, articulate people. So I'm looking forward to hearing their opinions and having some good discussions. So let's go. So the first topic is the pandemic. So, the first thing I want to do is just kind of go around and just very kind of however vague or specific you want to get. How has the pandemic affected your spiritual experience or your Christian experience? How has it affected it? And anyone can start.
I think obviously in-person worship and fellowship with other congregants has been affected drastically. You can't really do that. Some churches have opted to open back up now that here in Illinois we've entered into phase 3. We're still in phase 3, right? So yeah, some practicing social distancing and things of that nature. But yeah, we're 7 months into this pandemic, so yeah, a lot of regular church attendees and people like that, we've all been affected in one way or another. Spiritually, for me personally, I have definitely leaned in because this all affects people in different ways. And there's no, I'm not saying there's any right or wrong way to handle being in a global pandemic, because who thought we'd see that in our lifetime? But, I think for those of us, who've grown up in the church, been in the church our whole lives, our parents are in the church, you're going to go back to what you know. You're going to lean in and, kind of rest in your faith in God to get through this.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Anyone else want to give their impression?
Yeah, no, I agree with Janelle. I've definitely relied more on my faith because this is a brand new experience. It's actually taken me out of more of my norm. I haven't been in the office in 6 months, which I'm technically okay with. But I do miss being in the church and being able to engage with people on a normal basis versus having to talk through a mask and, make all those different adjustments that we wouldn't have had to make, the beginning of the year. I was looking forward to 2020 being a brand new decade and things really popping off, and they did, but just not in the direction that I was
They did,
expecting.
but not quite what you expected.
Right. So, but it's still an adjustment. I've actually known people who have come down with COVID. Fortunately, most of them have recovered, but they still have some lingering effects, like they haven't gotten their sense of taste back. So I always have the paranoia of coming in contact with someone. So slight paranoia, but remaining faithful.
It's funny. Both of you said something, and it reminded me, and anyone who knows me knows I watch a lot of like comic book movies and different things. But do y'all remember, if you don't, that's fine, Karate Kid 2? Do y'all remember Karate Kid 2? Do you remember Danny? Danny was all discombobulated. His girlfriend broke up with him. His car broke down. Like, everything was going wrong. So he goes to find Mr. Miyagi. And he goes to Mr. Miyagi. Mr. Miyagi's working on the bonsai tree in the backyard. And he says, Mr. Miyagi, everything's going wrong, blah, blah, blah. And he said something that actually kind of resonated with me. And I thought about it when Lisa and Janelle were talking. He said, when things are going wrong, when things are going crazy, just remember to breathe. Go back to the basics. The first thing you did when you came into the world was start breathing. And when things kind of get off kilter, you need to go back to like the origins, the original, the beginning, and that's breathing. So it sounds like for both of you, kind of going back to your relationship with God has kind of been part of the remedy of getting through this.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Like I mean, I think we've all been touched by this in more ways than one, not just like those of us who suffered loss, loss of life. Like there are people that are no longer here that we know. And then it's happened in droves and waves, like death is a part of life, and I'm not trying to romanticize it, and but we do have to acknowledge that this is rough. This is challenging.
Right.
Like every day, every week, someone else that we know could be impacted negatively by this. And yeah, the paranoia. Definitely, I'm gonna go ahead and be honest and say that I've had some serious COVID paranoia.
Yeah.
I'm ashamed to admit how many masks I own.
Well, look,
I'm right there with you, Janelle. I totally understand. I mean, because you want things to be normal, but you have to be cautious.
Mm-hmm.
So everything you do is somewhat guarded. It's not relaxed.
Right,
so I think I've now gone to my third restaurant, where I used to go to the restaurants all the time.
Yeah.
And it's not comfortable. It's like you got to walk in with a mask. They're going to take your temperature. You're going to be seated. You're not going to be seated next to a group of anyone, which again, I'm okay with. But it's just the atmosphere is tense still. You get a menu, it's paper, or you have to download the menu.
Right.
Yeah. I checked the glasses to see if they were plastic or if they were real, just because some won't give you real glasses anymore. It's kind of bizarre.
Or the plastic flatware and stuff.
Oh yeah.
It is extremely bizarre. Like I'm one of those people who's also been like super duper in quarantine. I haven't been to my office in 7 months as well, aside from going to get mail and any equipment that I might need to be able to do my job from home. But yeah, no interaction with coworkers, no worship with the church. And I did, pop out a little bit in June and July when things started opening up and we entered phase 3, but I was super paranoid about it. Like people, I'd be like 6 feet.
Right.
Whoa.
Hey, bro, I'm gonna need
Like
you to
a little too
back up a little
close.
bit.
You're a little too close, right?
Well, I think what's been interesting for me when we talk about the pandemic and faith is really two things in terms of my relationship with God. The first would be, based upon what I've seen, we have not seen a pandemic of this scale since 1918 with the Spanish flu, right? And so with that in mind, this has been a very humbling experience for me because we like to think that we have made so many medical advancements since 1918, right? We've made so many scientific advances. There's so much more we can do with technology since 1918, but then this thing hits, right? And the best thing the experts can tell us to do is stay in your house, put on a mask, don't talk to nobody, don't go nowhere. It's like, well, gee, all the things in an advanced society I thought I could rely on, I can't. The doctors I thought I was relying on to keep me healthy, I can't rely on them to fix this. The medicine I thought I could rely on to keep me well, I can't rely on because they don't have any medicine for this yet. The same thing with the job that I relied upon for financial security. This has upended so many things that we thought we could rely on, that we thought we got past, that we thought we could do without God. And now we find ourselves in a place where the best thing I, as a Christian, know how to do, since I can't trust the doctor, since I can't trust the technology, since I don't have the medicine, since I may or may not have a job tomorrow, is go to God. My story, the only one I know in all this craziness, I can trust and say, Father, please, I don't know what else is happening, but help me. That would be the first thing. It's really made me humble and say, God, back to you. I tried to invest in all this other stuff and think, no, back to you. The second thing I think it's done, it has really given me a new sense of gratitude. I know a lot of the younger folks who will see this will know that this is something we typically call around this time of year homecoming season, right? But of course, it's not really safe to have the sort of homecoming we typically have. And just like, it took me becoming ill to appreciate being well. It's taken me to be sequestered from everybody to really appreciate the community. I'm watching all these pictures of homecomings in years past, and I'm like, man, what I would give. And it's something I had totally taken for granted, to just be able to gather with my friends without a mask, without the fear Janelle just spoke about, and just hug, or just take a picture or a selfie or just create some memories. Things that we can't really do, things that we probably all took for granted. It's just something that we did, but it's like under these circumstances, after how many months of this now? When did this start? March?
I think March
13th.
Yeah.
13th,
Right.
March 13th.
Something like that, yeah.
7.
Yeah. To just be able to just gather with my friends and just hug and laugh and joke. Holiday meals, what it is to have a holiday meal with your family without worrying about whether or not you're going to kill somebody, frankly, because someone in the room may have COVID. I took that for granted, and it gave me a new sense of gratitude for things I didn't even know I should be appreciated. So definitely, I'd say in those two areas, it shifted my focus back to Christ in really unexpected but very important ways.
No doubt, no doubt. Sylvia preaching her first sermon today.
That's all.
Very good. Amen. Demetrius, what's going on, sir?
No, what are you doing? One thing that is as a business professor, one thing that is key to successful businesses, our businesses' ability to pivot, the ability to see something on the horizon that can be a game stopper, and for them to pivot. It's the difference between Sprint and Blockbuster.
Right. Very
Sprint
true.
Sprint stands for Southwest Pacific Railroad, right? They were a railroad company, not a telecommunications company, but they pivoted when the railroads were no longer being profitable and made themselves profitable. Blockbuster wanted to have open stores and have people go in and rent movies. Netflix came to them and said, we want to sell you this technology. We don't have to do that. Blockbuster said no. They refused to pivot. And we know where Blockbuster is. We know where Netflix is now. So the pandemic causes us we have to pivot in our lives, in our relationships with Christ. No, I can't go into the church house. No, I can't see the individuals I'm used to seeing face to face. But I'm blessed with these wonderful achievements like Facebook and Zoom and Microsoft Teams and Google Meetups, where you can literally get on your computer or your phone and you can see those same people whenever you want to.
Right.
You can have the same kind of communion with them, just minus the physical interaction. Is it perfect? Is it what we're used to? No, but it's a necessary pivot. We can argue and fight about how we don't want to do it. I say, knock yourselves out, be Blockbuster. I'm just saying, I'd much rather pivot and be Sprint. I'd much rather be that company that says, I can do something different and achieve the same result, the same idea. If the idea is that I want to commune with like-minded people and testify about the things God has done for me and pray together and be thankful together, why do I need to all be in a place where a third of the people are figuring out who's supposed to sit where they're supposed to sit? The other third are trying to figure out who's wearing what they're supposed to wear and how you're supposed to look or get your hair done or who's doing this or who's doing that. If the goal is for us to come together around Christ or around the religion that we serve, and whatever religion you serve, how is that stopped because I'm doing it via Zoom or Facebook or Google Hangouts or again, any of these companies that didn't just start existing when the pandemic started? These things were already there. Zoom wasn't created in March. Microsoft Teams wasn't created in March. These things existed. So we just got to pivot to learn to use them and to learn to use them effectively so that we can achieve the goal. If the goal is praise and worship, if the goal is being communing with other like-minded individuals, goal accomplished. We can do that using these different technologies.
I mean, we're doing that right now. I mean, that is what we're doing right now.
Now, if the goal is who got the new Easter suit that they can show off on Easter, then your goal is wrong. And okay, maybe we can't do that.
I was gonna kill y'all with my pastel blue this year, though. I'm telling you, though.
right.
I was gonna Spice Adams y'all to death this year.
Okay.
Let me tell y'all, it took me a minute to find my Zoom groove, but I am in it. I got the lighting.
Now,
I got the angle.
Now, I will confess, I worked very closely with Janelle for a long time, and I worked with Sylvia, and we worked at a community access place. Zoom is like the biggest thing in 100 years. Like, if this existed at this price when we were, I mean, it's a game changer. It's an absolute game changer. I'm sorry, Demetrius, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I'm shaking my head because you're absolutely right.
Right. Well, look, I'll go. Truth be told, I think my response is really kind of a combination of what other people have said. Part of me I feel a lot of gratitude because I don't know if everyone knows, but I've had health challenges over like the last couple years, and to see the other side, like I'm still going. I'm going to work every day. I'm doing this. I feel God has taken care of me more than once. Anyone who knows me knows that I've been in dire situations and God has taken care of me. So I think just continuing to feel gratitude for God continuing to watch over me and watch over my family, watch over, my loved ones. But then, the other thing is, and I'll be honest, I'm disappointed in people. And I think the thing is, when you invest in people emotionally, you will be disappointed. And just to see so my thing is, God made doctors, and God made Zoom, and God made all these things that we can use to make our existence with this pandemic easier. And for people to just say, no, I don't want to use masks, or no, I don't want to do this, or no, I don't want to do that. Like, God not pleased by that. If God gives you these things, or if God puts it on people's mind to develop these tools and you don't use them, that's not glorifying God at all. So, I mean, I guess that's my opinion. But I've been talking, like, I'm not used to this, because normally I don't give my opinion on this. So, but I appreciate y'all. Give me 1 second.
It was a valid opinion, though. Like, this has shown us that our society is unbelievably selfish. Like,
Very
as
true.
a whole, you know, like we talked earlier, we touched on the loss of life because of the virus, but there's been loss of life associated with this pandemic because of people's willful rebellion. Like the security guards trying to go to work and enforce store policies, and they're murdered because someone who was legally or illegally carrying a firearm decided, I don't want to wear a mask, and you don't have a right to tell me to wear a mask, so I'm gonna kill you. Like, that's just, like, you've heard of those. It's been more than one. And it's insane. I'm like, when did our society become so selfish, so lawless, so godless? People don't fear God anymore.
But then again, Janelle, and I don't mean to get on a political. If I'm wrong, Demetrius, you check me if I'm wrong. But
the political yet.
When you have a society that will put children in cages, what won't they do? You know what I'm saying? Like, what won't they do? So you have a refugee coming from Guatemala or Mexico, family, and you say, not because the parents are criminals, but just they came. They haven't done anything else. You are willing to put that child, a baby in a cage, let him sleep on the floor. You willing to do that? You'll do anything at that point. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
End of rant.
You're good. We haven't just become this way. Understand that
True.
the United States in 1941 sent back a ship of 742 Jews back to Germany in 1941. I mean, let's think about that. 741 Jewish immigrants came on a boat, hit the shores of New York, and were not allowed to disembark and were sent back. You do know what was going on with Jews in Germany in 1941.
Right.
So we didn't just get like this now. We have video of it. We have cameras that are showing it. We have proof of it. It's not just a newspaper that if you don't read it, you get to ignore it. If you turn your television on, and people feel like they're being bombarded with it. Well, they're being bombarded with the truth and with facts. And if that does not make you turn to a God, turn to something more powerful than you, then I don't know what ever will. But I think it's a dangerous thing when we believe, what have we come to today? We've been here. We've been here a while. We need to get back. We need to get back to God in a hurry.
The country as a whole has a history of this type of behavior. I think where it starts to rear its ugly head is when you have leadership that encourages it. I mean, because let's face it, we wear seatbelts because for our safety. We don't love them, but we do it. You buckle up. It's now become such second nature for most of us. Children have grown up wearing seatbelts. I was not one of them, we had lap belts at the time when I was a child.
Right.
So, but leadership stepped in and said, this is for your safety. I'm doing it. You should do it. We want to protect everybody. You don't have that type of leadership going on right now. You have a leadership that wants to stir up the ugliness, to create division amongst us versus unification. And I think that's where God comes in. He unifies us. It doesn't matter whether you're Catholic, Baptist, non-denominational. It's having faith in a greater power that can unite us. And that's what we need to look towards.
You know, though, and it's funny you say that, because there are people who will argue that it takes faith to walk outside without a mask in the middle of the pandemic because you believe God is going to cover you and God is going to protect. And that's been something interesting to see too, how people who know God or say they know God have taken the same crisis and have interpreted it different ways in the name of Jesus.
But God did cover you.
People will say what you just said, Kevin, that the Lord gave us masks, right? He gave us a pandemic, but he gave us masks. He gave us researchers and epidemiologists, and we should listen to them, right? And take the advice and do that which they say to be safe. There are other people, though, who will say, listen, I have so much faith in God, right? And that's one of the interesting things that I've learned as a seminary student. You know, a lot of folks say they know God, right? But if you ask them how they know him or what they know him to be or what they told you to do, you'll get totally different answers. There are other people who will see this same pandemic and say, my faith tells me to fear no evil, including this pandemic. So as an exercise of faith, I will go outside without a mask. As an exercise of faith, and this has been interesting because communal church has been identified as a super spreader of the virus because of all of the particles that are released into the air during the singing. There's a lot of hugging and hand holding. And when we take communion, and we've been advised not to worship. And there are people who say that that is an exercise of fear. And if you really believe God, you will ignore that. Go worship because the Lord is with you and the Lord will keep you safe. He can do more for you than any mask, more for you than any epidemiologist. So I think one of the questions then becomes, how do we reconcile, right, as believers, the different ways people have seen this and have interpreted what it means from God? Because there are some folks who believe that it is a true exercise of faith to go outside maskless, to go to church like nothing happened, and just trust the Lord to be with you at all times.
This is the part where Kevin kicks me out of the discussion. My answer. The great part is that those people are becoming less and less. Right. Because they're dying.
They're eliminated. They're kind of eliminating themselves from the conversation.
They're eliminating themselves. So in all your faith, I want them to speak of your faith at your Zoom funeral that you'll go. That will have to go.
Right.
I want them to speak. I want you to profess your faith from the casket. I want you to profess your faith from the funerals that you might have to go to for your parishioners who have died because of this faith. Instead of having the faith that, like Kevin said, God gave you. It's a story I've always heard. A guy was on a desert island and he's praying to God for help, and a dinghy goes by and he says, "No, I'm good. I'm waiting for God." And then a guy on a yacht goes by. He says, "Nope, it's good. I'm waiting for God." And the cruise ship goes by and he says, "Nope, it's good. I'm waiting for God." And then he dies and gets to heaven. He says, "God, I was waiting on you. Why didn't you come?" He said, "I sent you a dinghy, a yacht, and a cruise ship." Did you not see me that I was there? He sent you masks. He sent you hand sanitizer. He sent you all of these things. There's your faith. Your faith should be that he has already provided for you that which you need prior to this. Again, Zoom existed prior to the pandemic. Face masks existed prior to the pandemic. I found hand sanitizer that I had in the closet that had been given away to me from all kind of different conferences people used to give you the little hand sanitizers and tchotchkes, right? I found about 50 of those in a closet at the beginning of this. And I was like, God has provided me with what I need before I knew I needed it.
Yeah, absolutely. I was gonna say, I feel like Christianity has become super convoluted in our modern day society. Like, a lot of people are claiming to be Christians and professing that they are operating under the umbrella of Christianity, but their actions don't embody the word of God. Just, we can take it back to that and make it that simple. Also, while I definitely encourage people to have faith, faith doesn't mean that you should act like you have a lack of common sense. People are,
God provided that too, common sense.
Yeah. I think people are confusing rebellion with faith. The Bible says my people perish for a lack of knowledge. You can also refuse common sense and refuse knowledge, refuse the directives of health officials and government officials that are telling you what measures and steps to take to keep yourself and those close to you safe, and you refuse to do that. That's not faith. That's willful disobedience. That's willful rebellion. And there are consequences for those actions, because those of us in the community and in who are affiliated with faith-based organizations or spiritual or whatever God you believe in, you have to know that he's still on the throne. You have to know that he sees and knows all. So if your heart is not right, if you are putting people at risk, putting yourself at risk through, like I said, willful disobedience and willful rebellion, then yes, there are consequences. And I'm not rooting for anybody to fail. I'm not rooting for anybody to die unnecessarily from COVID or anything related. But it's hard for me. I'm not gonna take as hard of a stance as Demetrius, but it's hard for me to soak up some tears for your funeral when essentially you brought it on yourself.
But I think, though, that as Christians, we are required to have a certain degree of compassion for all of God's people. Some of what I think you may be referring to, and this is just my thought, there are, I believe, 5 stages of grief, if I'm not mistaken. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. I think that for all of us, we have to acknowledge that we've lost some things that were very important to us as a result of this pandemic. And we talked about some of them earlier: our sense of safety, our sense of security, our sense of consistency, right? Our sense of certainty about the way our days, our weeks, our months, our years were going to go. We've lost all of that. And I think, some people are grieving. And there are some folks who may still, frankly, be stuck at stage 1, denial.
That's a good point.
And I think that, this is not real. It's not something I need to take that seriously. And those people, I think, deserve, one, our compassion, right? And, understanding that they are not where some of the rest of us are. But I think, too, it can also be a cautionary tale to the degree that when God, I think, this is just me speaking personally, knowing God makes it easier to accept the twists and turns of life when, as I said at the very top, you acknowledge there are some things that are just beyond the pale of what we can control. They're beyond the scope of what we can do, what we can fix. It's just, we'll say, it's above me now, right? I think that
the best Western is next.
Shout out to that guy.
It's beyond what I can do. But I think that if you know that there is a God, right, who there's nothing that is above him. There's nothing that he can't control, allow, fix, do, undo, repeat, rewind, none of that. If you say, well, this is something I just have to give to him, it's easier to make it from stage 1 denial to stage 5, which is acceptance. And I think that we just need to then pray for folks who are still at phase 1, because that is a very real place to be. That is a legitimate place to be. And if they are there, they are there.
Sylvia, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I guess the only thing I would add to that is I would be more willing to kind of have patience with people who are so openly defiant if what they did didn't put other people at risk.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think, the thing is,
Fair.
I have medical things that makes my immune system less able to fight this kind of thing off. So if you don't wear a mask and you come into my house, you're putting me at risk. My mother's, an older lady, and she's at risk because of her age.
I'm gonna tell your mama, Kevin. I'm gonna tell your mama you said that.
He didn't say the age. He didn't do it.
I'm not gonna say. I didn't say what it was. I said she's older than me.
That was on point. I saw that. I recognized that.
You saw you peeped that. I'm glad you did. But look,
you don't want no smoke with Mrs. Smith now,
right?
No, but I guess what I'm saying is just that, like, if I decide to be rebellious and it only affects me, that's one thing. But if I decide to be rebellious and then I go talk to Janelle, and Janelle has an older relative coming to visit her mother, and she goes over there and she got like just put the darn mask on, I guess is what I'm saying. God made those masks. God made all of this stuff. God put the intelligence in Dr. Fauci telling us what we need to do.
Yeah.
And the same intelligence that told Dr. Fauci what we needed to do with the bird flu or the swine flu. You know what I'm saying? Like, I guess that's what I'm saying. Like, I have a problem when Christians pick and choose which one of God's creations, what God's tools they want to use. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I guess, like, my question would be, how many people have to die before they decide, maybe I should come out of denial and move to acceptance and do my part to stop the spread? Because, like, it's not just the elderly, like I don't even like to say this, but it's true. Everyone in my immediate family is high risk, either because of their age or because of pre-existing health conditions. There are teenagers that have died from COVID-19 because they had pre-existing health conditions, asthma, whatever. And it's like, so I feel like that is what fueled my paranoia. I was carrying the weight of that. I'm like, my little brother, I can't go around him. Oh, my mom, my stepdad, I can't, oh my God, I can't, and then you go into overload, and it's like, how is it that I'm able to be selfless when it comes to my loved ones, but other people are literally killing their loved ones because they choose to disregard all of the scientifically proven safety measures that are in place? It's just, it makes me angry, to be honest.
Because we've got to a point in this country, and I only speak about this country when I'm in, we got into a point where we're so divided about what is and isn't right that we aren't really divided about COVID. We're divided about science. We're divided about intelligence, and they think they're smarter than me.
Mm-hmm.
We divided about those things. Then you just drop COVID into that, and it falls on the side of that. I think if we were truly divided about COVID, I think we wouldn't be. I think I want to believe that the deaths would cause people to rethink things. But I don't think COVID is the argument. I think COVID is one part or one situation that has occurred with this argument. Because the argument is, you think you're so much smarter than me. Well, maybe you're not. The argument is, well, the scientists don't know everything. That why are they the smartest people in the world? Because you mad because when you was 15, you failed chemistry in high school. So now you mad at Dr. Fauci because the nerd in high school that you talked about now makes more money than you. So you holding that for 30, 40, 50 years, and it's just manifesting itself in the COVID argument, or in the social justice arguments, or in the religious arguments, or any other argument that we have in this country sometimes I feel it all goes back to that, to some really deep-seated internalization of how we feel about people and about people's intelligence, and no one wants to be dumb. Nobody wants to be considered dumb. So this is they built this trench, and they've laid in their anchors that they're going to be here, and there's enough of them that they feel comfort in being that way, because there's others who will be along with them. And for all the blessings and joys of social media, it allows these maybe disparate, far separated individuals to connect with each other. You know, they can be parts of these groups on social media where they have these and they share this nonsense that's nonsense to us, but they're not really arguing COVID. They're arguing, I'm not dumb. They're Michael's older brother. I'm not dumb, like people say. I'm smart.
I'm smart, and I want respect.
Respect, right?
Now, see, the thing is, Demetrius, and it's funny that, you know, this was supposed to be a conversation about kind of Christian things, and I think it kind of shows the almost the intersectionality between religion and other isms and other kind of ills in the nation, because I think a lot of the resistance to science and a lot of the resistance to is a lot of white privilege. It's a lot of male privilege. You know what I mean? Like, there are people who in the midst of this pandemic are arguing that the only law that allows them to be insured should be repealed. And there are people who currently have pre-existing conditions, so that if that law would get repealed, they wouldn't have any insurance and they would be without health care. But there are people who are convinced that that's what they should, because this evil black man was the one who got it passed, and this heroic white president now is about to get it. Like, that's what this is. I think it's a lot of white privilege, a lot of male privilege. You know what I mean? End of rant.
It's politicizing things that shouldn't be politicized, in my opinion. You know, like COVID-19 shouldn't be a campaign platform. You know, and then, you know, like did anybody watch this? Okay, I'm not going to delve too far into politics, but
so wait, Jada, excuse me. So what we were supposed to do was talk about the pandemic for 30 minutes, and then we were going to talk about politics for 30 minutes.
Okay.
Christianity and politics.
Okay.
It seems we have gone to the politics, so
we're there.
Feel free to go as far into politics as you want.
Okay.
You have no boundaries. Go ahead.
All right, I'm green lit. Yay. No, it's just like I watched the presidential debate, if we can even call it that. That was
the first one. The first one you're talking.
Yeah, well, and then on the subject of the second one that didn't happen. And,
right.
Oh my gosh, like, I'm not doing a Zoom. What? Where did I do this at?
Right.
Anyway, like, they were Trump, and then I also watched the vice presidential debate. Pence did the same thing. They were talking about in my opinion, very modest and mild pandemics that occurred during the Obama administration.
Right.
I'm like, look at the numbers, bro. Like, the numbers alone puts this in an entirely different category, and people are still dying. Like,
and excuse me, Joe, I don't mean to interrupt, but the thing, I saw that and I commented on that too, because Pence basically said, do you know that under Obama, 2 million people got the swine flu? And literally his next sentence was, if swine flu was as bad as corona, it would have killed 1 million people. But the only problem is corona's not as bad as the swine flu. And you know why corona's not as bad as the swine flu?
Swine flu not as bad as corona.
Or I'm sorry, you know why swine flu's not as bad as corona? Because there was a pandemic team installed during during Barack's presidency that dealt with things like this on the ground level. I'm sorry,
Yep.
end of rant. Janelle,
Yep.
please continue.
And they don't want to give the Obama administration any credit or any recognition for the measures that they set in place that we as a whole in this country are still directly benefiting from. And, you know, regardless of your political affiliation, like I said, and I'm going to keep coming back to this, common sense tells you that the COVID-19 global pandemic has been wholly mismanaged, and the Trump administration has been wholly ineffective in how they handled it. And they were okay with the loss of life. At the end of the day, they
It
are
is
telling
what
us
it
through
is.
their actions that they do not care about the American people.
But
And it's like, if we don't collectively wake up and get up off our butt, and that is why I'm wearing this
But
vote in
you want to
today.
you want
We
us to follow those smart people. You want us to listen to all those smart people. You want us to listen to all those eggheads and nerds and all the smart people to tell us what to do. They can't tell us what to do. They're just because they're smarter than me, because they're not really smarter than me, because I'm not that you nailed it. That's the problem.
Mhm.
Those people were smart, and they sound smart when they talk, and they sound intelligent, and they'd much rather have Trump is the hero to the deplorables.
Oh my
Right.
God.
He's the hero to the
He's
dumb.
the hero of the stupid. I mean, that's really
Yeah,
what it
think
is.
about
I
it.
don't mean to sound.
I'm stupid.
No, it's
I
true.
barely. If you're stupid, you barely got through school and you barely struggled. Here's somebody who's not smarter than me who became president. Wow, he is our hero, and that's the problem.
Well,
You know,
look,
I
I'm sorry.
wanna
Go ahead.
ask
Go ahead,
this-
Sylvia.
this
Go ahead,
though.
Sylvia.
And I think this is a question that we as believers really need to grapple with in the midst of all of this. And that question is, what is the church's role in all of this? In a pandemic, what is the church's responsibility to Christians? And what is the church's responsibility to society at large? What is our role in this? Because I want to say this too, and it's true. The people who you have talked about who refuse to wear masks will say that there was a time when Dr. Fauci said the flu is a bigger threat in the United States than COVID-19, and those folks would be right. He did say that. There are people who will hoist
March 9th and March 10th of
that
2020.
I'm almost done. Will hoist up the fact that Dr. Fauci said masks are useless, right? And they'll be right. He did say that at the beginning of this. So the question is, if people don't trust science, and some folks don't, we've all agreed with that, but they trust their church and they trust their pastors, what obligations then does the church have in the middle of something like this to help folks get through? Does it help when your pastor insists upon opening the doors when the governor and so these are the sorts of questions I'm curious, to get answers to, especially from other believers. What should the church be doing then if people, you know what I mean, if they don't want to embrace what's being said?
Yeah.
I mean,
But why?
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead,
No,
Demetrius.
why not? And I wasn't definitely trying to cut you off. I was giving the dates of when he said that. He said the flu statements March 9th to March 10th of 2020. He made the mask statement March 11th. The country shut down March 13th. So the idea that we're not trusting science, that we want to keep bringing up things that are and out of context. Because even when he said those things, his follow-up was, but we don't know everything about this pandemic. I mean, about this disease. We don't know everything about this virus.
We're still
He
learning.
said at this time, these are the things, but we don't know everything about that. So this idea of us not trusting science because scientists said something different is really, it's a half-truth. And a half-truth is a whole lie. Every day it'll be.
And the thing is, information evolves.
Mhm.
I mean, the thing is, I don't know Dr. Fauci, but I assumed he operated with the best information he had at the time. Since he said that, he's not gone back and said, well, masks don't do any good and flu doesn't, he's working with the best information he has. But I mean, I guess my thing is, and particularly with the Black church, I mean, there was a time where the Black church provided it was like the news. It was like Don Lemon. I mean, it was like, because a lot of Black people didn't have access to a lot of, news outlets and watching the news. So like, you got all the news from the church. So the pastor was the kind of the gateway to all that information. I don't necessarily think that the Black church should do that, but I do think, I mean, our church, Bryn Mawr, is a community church. So I think a lot of what we try to do is kind of empower people within the community. And I don't think it serves anyone for like, if our church were to open prematurely and expose people to that kind of risk. We also have a food pantry, and the food pantry stayed open, but they've had to make significant changes to the way they operate. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that demonstrates a lack of faith in God. I think, if anything, it demonstrates an acknowledgement of the situation that God has kind of put before us. You know what I'm saying? I mean, God is good all the time, but I mean, everything is God creation. So God put this challenge in front of us, but he's giving us tools to combat it. And I think the thing that frustrates me, similar to what Janelle said, is that we're not using the tools God's given us to combat this. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And too, unfortunately, I think far too many of our churches are for sale. Like
that's a valid point. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Janelle. I think that is a very true statement. You have a lot of church leaders that are very politically attached. Mm-hmm. And therefore, it's not the best interest of the congregation. It's not the best interest of the people. It's the best interest of themselves.
Absolutely.
And that's when the waters become muddied.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Go ahead. Also, I was going to say that a lot of religious leaders in those positions of authority, where they have, a larger congregation, that translates to business, right? Church has become more of a business than a ministry. And the question that came up for me in the midst of all of this is, where is your ministry? I understand that the legalities of running a church, and yes, there is, to an extent, very definitely some elements of having a business infrastructure. But I think if we're truly professing to be Christians and walking in our faith and walking out our faith and allowing that to lead how we treat others, that there has to be some balance between business and ministry. And personally, I think ministry needs to edge out over business.
Y'all, this is really very good. Like, this excellent conversation. Thank you all. Just let's pivot a little bit, but stay kind of in the political realm. Wanted to ask a question. So we have the presidential election coming up in what, 2 or 3 weeks? Is it might be 2?
November
3rd. Yes. Let me ask you guys, and if you don't want to give who you're voting for, that's fine. I think I've already kind of told who I'm voting for, but that's fine. Does the faith of the candidate matter in terms of you voting for him? Does it really matter?
You mean
faith or religion?
Religion or both. Either one. Can you answer both?
The professed faith? Because I'm sorry, I do not for 1 minute, 1 millisecond believe that Donald Trump is a Christian in any way, shape, or form.
At all.
I resent him using that as a platform to run with his candidacy for re-election. It's fraudulent and it's offensive, and it demoralizes Christianity as a whole. It's because of people like him their Christianity is receiving such a bad rep right now.
Yeah, I totally echo what Janelle just said. I never looked at him, regardless of whether he was sitting in the White House or not, as a faithful person. I think he's a person that is truly about himself. And regardless of whether he's a Republican or a Democrat, I could not support him as an individual because I don't think he is that type of person that cares about anybody beyond his nose.
I think it's what I look like that one. I had to catch my breath. Getting right beyond his nose. That's a good one. I would prefer my candidate to have faith in a higher power, because I can't believe that in a job of that magnitude, you're not going to come to a point where you're going to have to rely on something beyond what's available to us as mortals. You know, so I faith is important that you have some of that. Because at some point you're going to, the job's too big. I mean, I have to sometimes just figure out what I'm gonna cook for dinner on any particular day. You know, so I know for decisions they have to make, you need to rely on a higher power.
Right.
Now their actual religion. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
No, because I was going to pivot just a little. I'll take it a step further. For me, I won't even go to a doctor that I don't think has some type of faith.
I'll go with that. I'll go with that. Now,
so I definitely don't want a leader that doesn't have it.
Right.
Well,
now,
doesn't embody it.
Now,
but does the person? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, the person's religion is different. That's much more of a personal choice. And I for one, I understand, especially in the Black community, our leaders have been religious leaders. That goes back to slave time, because the only time Blacks could congregate was in church.
Right.
So that's why leaders came out of. So I understand. But I have a problem with ministers being politicians, because I think you have a conflict of interest. As a minister, your constituency is God. As a politician, your constituency are the people who voted you in and those that you represent. And sometimes that constituency can be different. That the wants of that constituency can be different. You could have people who want to open the world back up and open up the economy and things, because that's what your constituency wants. But as a minister, to go back to answer some of Sylvia's question with the job of the churches, the minister is to say, God wants you to be healthy. So you have to answer that constituency.
And God has charged me with taking care of you. And I don't necessarily mean like they come and live in the pastor's house. I'm just saying, like, while you're here in this building, God has charged me with putting you in the best position you can be in. I guess is what I'm saying. You know what I mean?
No, while you are part of this church, because the church is in the building, it's the body, it's the people. So while you are part of this church, and I have been placed as the head of this church, the head of this body, the shepherd of this flock, it's my job to make sure that I take care of you. That is my charge, like you say, that's been given me by God.
Right.
And so I have to answer to that charge. And our leaders should have councils who are part of their faith and religion. I think that's important to get that counsel. But that's a different job. A president and a minister, or any politician and a minister, a mayor, a governor, anything, and a minister, those are different jobs. And it just seems to me an inherent conflict of interest to try to do both.
I agree.
Yeah, that's valid.
Okay. Just think about, and again, no one has to give their own opinion, but or no one has to give who they're voting for one way or the other, although I think it's fairly obvious.
Biden, Harris.
But
2020, let's just get it out there.
Right. There are two AKAs in the room, there's an alpha in the room, and everyone's Black. So I think
and it's
pretty clear. but
I've already cast my vote. I'll be perfectly honest.
Done. Me too. I'm done
I
already.
went to Beethoven the other day. I'm good. I'm good money. But look, question. As a Christian, what do you think some of the most important issues, political issues are? And I mean, is it any different than any just like a regular person or non-Christian important issues? Like, do you have any issues that you think as a Christian kind of take priority, political issues? Is that question clear? If it's not clear.
Yeah.
No, it is. It's
clear.
heavy.
It's just it's
Yeah.
heavy. Like, it's a tough question
It's
because
got,
you know, I think a lot of candidates in the Republican Party, incumbent or otherwise, are weaponizing Christianity. They are using it as a cloak and veil of sorts to attack people, to further marginalize people. And as Christians, it's difficult sometimes to toe the line because our personal beliefs and value systems may not align with the lifestyle choices of others, but at the same time, we are supposed to walk in love. God is love. We're supposed to extend that love. And you cannot call yourself a Christian and not walk in love. I can say I don't agree. Personally, I do not agree with your lifestyle choices. My belief system is different than yours. That's not the same as trying to pass legislation to prevent people from making choices. God is never going to override our will as human beings. He gives us the freedom of choice. So who are we in politics to try and infringe upon people's rights to choose whatever those choices may be? I tried to answer that as delicately as possible.
Your efforts are most appreciated. Thank you. Thank you.
you did a fine job.
Thank you very much.
Because I was waiting for you to just go get it.
I do not subscribe to hate speech. I do not subscribe to a lot of things that people who profess to be Christians are, distributing out there, permeating the atmosphere with. But that doesn't make me any less of a Christian.
Well done.
Yep. Well said.
Absolutely.
And this may go back to your previous question more than it does this question. As someone who is studying Black church studies and who tries to, sort of be fairly well versed in her history, I don't think that I've ever read anywhere that the slaves, and when I'm talking about slaves, I'm talking about my ancestors, the Africans enslaved in America, rejoiced when Abraham Lincoln was elected president. I don't know that they knew him to be, when he was elected, an abolitionist, a friend to Black people, an advocate for equal rights. I don't know that they knew him to be any of those things. And I don't know that there's any evidence to support the idea that he ever was any of those things. All evidence to the contrary, though, he's still the one credited with setting our ancestors free. And so I say that to say,
well, he abolished slavery. That's another story. I'm sorry. Please continue. Please continue, Sylvia. I apologize.
Thank you. As a Christian, my preoccupation is less with who is in control of an office, as long as I know that God is in control of everything and believe that he can use anyone, including someone I'd never think to do his bidding in my life. And I think that when we keep that in mind as believers, we can have peace regardless of how this election comes out. I have to say, I have never seen people on either side of the issue more polarized and have more emotionally invested in the outcome of an election than I've seen right now. But I think that if we really believe God to be everything that we say he is, then regardless of who wins, we have to believe that he is a keeper and he can work through anyone, create any circumstance, do anything to see his will done in our lives. And I think that, sort of partisan politics aside, that's something important to keep in mind that people of faith should not forget and cannot forget, keeping in mind that the Bible, I think it's Proverbs 29, when the godly are in authority, the people rejoice, but when the wicked are in power, they groan. Whether we got a godly person or a wicked person, we still have God above them both, and he can use either to get done what he wants to get done in our lives. And I would just hope that everybody who is a believer will keep that in mind, going forward.
Demetrius, you have anything you want to add, sir?
I can't disagree with anything that was said, but I also think it's important that that's a very precipitous slope, those statements, because those were the statements used to confuse the Black electorate all throughout the 60s in the South. Those are the statements that were put into the Black churches in the South about and getting them not to vote, saying, well, it really doesn't matter who's in charge. So if you believe in God, God will take care of it. These were the actual messages that were sent out. This was the marketing that was done to confuse the electorate, the Black electorate in the 60s in the South, to try to tamp down the civil rights movement. So while the statement is not false, it has to come with context that, yes, God is in control, and whoever's in charge, God will use forever for the benefit. All things work together for the good of those that love the Lord. We know that as Christians. Doesn't mean we still don't wear a mask. God may have sent, Biden and Harris to help usher in his will and his word. That may be the move. It doesn't mean we don't still vote. We don't still exercise our rights. So I think that statement, while it is true on its face, it's been used, it's been weaponized in the past to disenfranchise Black voters. And so it's just a very scary statement. When I hear that, I go back to that, to understanding what that was used for and how that was used, because the church's been for sale for a while. And some of those Black churches in the South that were for sale, this is what they were sold, and this is what they were told to give to their parishioners and to their people during that time to prevent some political movement during the civil rights age and era. It's part of the reason that led to Blacks in northern states becoming less rooted in churches, because they saw that, they heard those things, and they heard that in the southern churches. And so the children of people, these people are our parents now, and even our grandparents, some of them left the church because they felt that the church was not, if they were giving them that, they weren't supporting the idea of the change that needs to be made. So that statement is, while, like I say, factually on its face, very true, it's a dangerous thing if given without context, because it's been used to really destroy and tear down what Black people
subjugate us.
Yes, good word. Yes, very much so. Very much so. So that's my only thing with that, is that yes, I have faith. I had faith in 2016 when this man was elected. I knew then what it was. I knew it was a problem. I had faith that God will see us through and work us through this. Doesn't mean that I want to sign up for another 4 years of it, though.
I'm sorry, Lisa. We've been seeing you come in and out. Do you have any thoughts on what you think the most important issues to you as a Christian voter?
There are so many. I mean, I will just keep it very simple in that the person that currently resides in the White House is not the individual that I can support. I don't think there is anything that benefits us as Christians that are at the top of his list or even on his radar, to be perfectly honest. So I'm just hopeful that we can get other people in, not only in the White House, on the Supreme Court,
In the
in
Senate,
Congress,
right?
yes, that can put forth initiatives that support us as a whole, faithful people, regardless of your religious choices, that look out for the good of the people, the common good of the people. And that's what's most important to me. We just have to right all the things that have been done wrong for the past 4 years and get back on track. We got to start somewhere new. Go ahead.
A question on that statement. Why is there an assumption that all Christian voters are all in the same block and all have the same kind of belief systems? Because I think that's at the core with the heaviness of this question, is that as Christians, there are a lot of things that probably fall on what we consider a Republican conservative platform as Christians. Some Christians would, some Christians wouldn't. I think there's a really bad assumption that all Christians have the same political beliefs, or especially if you say all Black Christians. I think that's sometimes.
I don't make that assumption at all.
Not us. I was talking about the question.
No one in this room.
Not in this room. No, the question. The question as it was posed, I think, maybe has a false narrative in that it assumes that Black Christians all have the same kind of political wishes.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess, and I asked the question, so I guess I'll respond. It's just that I'm not saying that every Christian has the same issues as high priorities. But like for me, and I'm just speaking for Kevin Smith, this is definitely not for Bryn Mawr Church, not for any other person. But I'm saying like for me, pro-choice, pro-life is not a huge issue because I'm not going to get an abortion. So like, I'm not married. It's just not a high priority issue for me. For me, an issue that's very important is healthcare and people's access to healthcare. If someone can't get insured, that affects the quality of their life exponentially. So like that's an important issue for me. Whereas I know for other people within the Christian faith, Roe v. Wade is the biggest issue. So, I mean, I'm just speaking for myself, so maybe does that provide a little bit more?
That's fair. That's fair. That's fair. That's a fair part of the statement. I think it properly puts the question out there, with our personal issues that our faith leads us toward that are affected in the political realm. So yeah, I think that's more than fair.
I guess I would just want to say, I started off at the top of this discussion saying that what has happened this year is everything we thought we could control as people. We found out we couldn't control. Everything we thought we could put our trust in to chart our own course, we couldn't trust. And I don't necessarily think that elections are any different. I think that we live in an age where, mail fraud is possible. We live in an age where outside influences influencing what people think is possible. We live in an age certainly where enough people have access to the vote, where folks might tip the scale in a direction that you don't like. I think as much faith as we would like to put in the fact that we have a vote, like everything else, that may be beyond our control too. It just may be. We could do everything that we think we should, and it just may be beyond our control. So at that point, just like everything else that's happened this year, as a person of faith, where do you turn? What do you do? Where do you go if that happens? And I think, you know, I don't know how the election is going to come out. I don't think anyone here is confident of the outcome yet. But regardless of how it comes out, you know, what are we as believers going to do?
I think that's a fair statement.
No, absolutely.
And I think what we do is what we've done for the past 4 years is you continue to stay faithful. You continue to move forward. And I'm going to borrow your word, Kevin, from earlier. We pivot because we don't know what the outcome will be of the election. I think we remain hopeful because we all want to hope for something better than what we have now. And going back to you, Demetrius, for what I feel we have now, there's some who are perfectly content with the way things are. But I think when you look at the country as a whole, we've definitely gone in the wrong direction. But it's up to us as individuals to bridge those gaps and to make those changes that need to be made, some within ourselves.
Absolutely.
No doubt.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Any? I don't want to cut you off, Demetrius. Did you have anything?
No, I was just saying yes. I was just in full agreement.
Demetrius, Janelle, Lisa, Sylvia. Like, this was awesome. This is great. We're definitely going to do this again.
Okay.
I enjoyed the conveation.
I have made the decision on behalf of we're going to do this again because this was so
All right.
I want to thank everybody for being a part of this conversation. This will be posted on social media, and if anyone wants to reply to any of us, just use the hashtag Bryn Mawr Faith. Bryn Mawr Faith. Again, I want to thank Demetrius, Janelle, Lisa, and Sylvia for being a part of this wonderful conversation. My name is Kevin Smith. I'm the technology chairman at Bryn Mawr Community Church. Thank you for watching.